Good evening and welcome back to Sports Talk ATL. I am Chase Earl, joined by Alex Lord. The Falcons took on the Lions, first road game of the season, and I don't think we could have been any more wrong about how this game panned out. We thought for the first time, and we talked about Desmond Ridder looking competent in the end of that fourth quarter. Could that confidence go into week 3 against the Lions defense that was banged up? Isn't that good, or at least we thought isn't that good in the first place? This was a dominant performance from their defense. I mean, the Falcons offense, they couldn't run the ball. That shocked me. 20 carries for 44 yards. They couldn't pass protect for anything. It had to be the worst we've seen this Falcons offensive line play from in all aspects in probably 2 years. I mean, it was just an absolute mess against the run and against the pass. Ridder was bad. It's okay to say he was bad. I know the offensive line was terrible, and not a lot of quarterbacks, especially young quarterbacks, facing that kind of pressure could have had great days. But he was terrible too. He was part of the problem and certainly not part of the solution. He was inaccurate. He threw multiple passes that should have been picked off. He's got to be the luckiest quarterback in all of football when it comes to dropped interceptions. I mean, that guy has a 4-leaf clover somewhere tucked into a sock because it's just truly been incredible. Some of the passes he's gotten away with, not just this year, but even dating back to last year. There were several times where he threw a guy like a flat route that should have been a pick six. And somehow I remember this specifically against the Saints, should have gone to the house, ended up maybe there's a penalty or he dropped it. I don't know, but he's got a 4-leaf clover hidden somewhere because he's getting very lucky. Listen, it was just for a team that like we had a lot of confidence. I think all Falcons fans woke up on Sunday and were excited to watch the game, maybe move to 3-0 against a solid team. But like we said, they were injured. There should have been places where the Falcons could have taken advantage, and they just got smacked in the mouth from start to finish.
Yeah, from a schematic point, the Lions played a lot of single high, which basically means one safety was up top. They walked a safety down into the box. So there's as many as 8 guys in the box, which is around that front 7 area. And the Falcons, couldn't throw the ball. Generally speaking, when you're facing 8 guys in the box, you throw the ball. They couldn't run it against 8 guys in the box, which isn't crazy. That's, you're outnumbered in that sense. And they couldn't pass the ball in those situations, and that was the detriment of the game. There was not a lot to like from an offensive standpoint, and I think that you nailed it. Guys, we could call a spade a spade. We don't have to sugarcoat anything. We don't owe this team anything. They've constantly let us down. We could say what's bad. We could call a spade a spade. Desmond Ridder was bad. The Falcons' offensive line was bad. Arthur Smith faltered at times. He had a couple of poor decisions, a couple head scratches where you're going, Art, what are we doing here? Running the ball on 3rd and 6, 3rd and 7. Listen, I get the fact that, it's hard to put the ball in Desmond Ridder's hands when he's shown you he hasn't been capable that day. So I guess I get it. But he was at fault. There's plenty of things to go back. They're going to have a long film session this week ahead of the Jaguars game. But in that same sense, there's a lot to improve upon. Desmond Ridder did have a couple of plays where a lot of people are going to chalk that Kyle Pitts miss to Desmond Ridder. But if you look at it from a different angle, Kyle Pitts was either not running his hardest, which I have a hard time believing, or it just tweaked something, isn't fully healthy from that MCL injury. We don't know. I don't want to speculate at all. But that miss was not on Desmond Ridder. Initially, when you're just watching, it looks like Desmond Ridder overthrew. But when you get from an all-22 perspective, if you look at it from a different angle, it's very clear that Kyle Pitts was not running that, 4.4 speed that we all saw coming out of Florida. So, there were some, like I said, there's so many moving parts. It's crazy to boil it down to Desmond Ridder lost this game because there's so many facets of the offense that failed us on Sunday. But in that same light, I'll pass it back to you. There were positives. The defense looked unbelievable for most of the game. They looked unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, I'll talk about the defense in a second. I want to talk about Pitts and first. I don't know if it's just like he's injured or if it's just like maybe that 4. There's guys all the time that run 4.4 and then that doesn't show up on tape. I mean, obviously it did show up on Florida, but he just doesn't look like the same guy that we saw in year 1. And I don't know what's going on with him. Not just that. I mean, yes, he definitely pulled up and was hobbling on that play. And then he comes back out there. He makes a couple catches, but he's not really involved. And we've talked a million times about Drake London and Kyle Pitts. I mean, what they combined for 3 catches. Arthur Smith, you mentioned him as being part of the problem. there's got to be some more creativity in this passing game. It can't just be 2-man route with those guys running, or maybe Matt Collins running, or Kyle Pitts where he's just running a decoy, like getting defense. It just, there's nothing there. Like it's been very, very disappointing. And even when the Falcons were running the ball well, the pass game left a lot to be desired from a play calling and a play design perspective. And Arthur Smith has to be better in that area. And listen, you lose some games like this. We talked about it. Like there's gonna be some chirps. Drake London and everything. Like they seem like hard-nosed guys that want to do everything to win, but eventually you're going to have to start passing the ball. And whether that happens this year with Desmond Ridder or someone else down the line, that has to be fixed and be more creative. And we'll see what happens with Pitts. It definitely seems like something's up. He doesn't look like the same guy that he was before that MCL injury last year. And we'll see. Maybe he needs some time off. Maybe he needs something like that. But yeah, the offense, if there was a grade from coaching to the receivers to Desmond Ridder to the offensive line, like it was an F, like just across the board. Like there was just, I don't know what they expected coming in there against Detroit. I don't know if they thought they were going to have their way in the run. I don't know what exactly threw them off their game, but from start to finish, they looked like a absolute mess and just were dominated. I mean, there were plays on the offensive line where Ridder wasn't even turned around after like a 3-play, and it's just like a guy's in his face sacking him. And it was just, it was just disgusting. But like you said,
what's crazy is, wait, let me add on real quick. And to that point, the Lions were hurt. They were down 2 of their best safeties, and Brian Branch comes out there and makes the plays that we're expecting Kyle Pitts to make, Drake London to make. This offensive line that we have invested in. None of that came to fruition. And to your point about the passing game, and this is something I've said before, this is nothing new. And generally speaking, Arthur Smith's passing concepts are a little bland. Generally from what I've seen. And the only way they really work is if one of our guys beats one of their guys one-on-one, which you expect when you spend 2 first top 10 picks on pass catchers. It generally doesn't work. Now, is the solution maybe bringing in a passing game coordinator? Lots of teams do that on the defensive side. There's a run game coordinator, pass game coordinator. Maybe Arthur Smith needs a little bit more help in that area. Let's not beat around the bush. I mean, his run game is as diverse and effective as any, but you need 2 to tango. It's a give and take. It's a yin and yang. You need the pass. You need the run. And our pass game has left a lot to be desired. But yeah, back to you. I mean, let's end on a lighter note because the defense was great.
There's also a problem with like just the fact that the 2 guys that you do have, Kyle Pitts, if whether he's injured, he can't get separation. And Drake London isn't necessarily a separation guy, and neither is Matt Collins. They're all like one-on-one dunk on you, like contested catches guys. And they're getting no separation. And it's just, it's created a very ugly passing game. And it's like Desmond Ridder has to almost throw a perfect ball that they can high point, or it's tough for them to play. That's really the only plays that we've had this in the passing game this entire season through 3 games have been Matt Collins, coming back to a ball and catching it. Kyle Pitts, that crazy catch in week 1. Drake London had that one catch. It was a high pointed ball. Like those are the only games that we ever have any chunk yardage or like these ridiculous catches from these big body wide receivers. And it's like, there's nothing really else outside of that. Like where even is Scotty Miller? Does that guy exist? I mean,
I haven't seen a single snap of Scotty Miller on the field, but to that point, I wrote about it a couple weeks ago. Yes, it doesn't matter if Kyle Pitts and Drake London are getting the ball, fantasy football, that Arthur Smith loves to say, this isn't fantasy football. And that's all good and well until you start losing games. We lost our first game. It's not the end of the world. I don't want to act like the sky is falling. It's the NFL. If you didn't watch this week, I mean, the Texans won, the Cardinals won. This is the NFL. The margin, the difference in talent is so thin. Any given Sunday is a saying for a reason. Any team can win on any Sunday. With that being said, now we lost a game. Kyle Pitts, Drake London still not involved. I'm wondering how they're feeling on Monday morning, saying I can do more for this offense if I'm just given the opportunity. I'd like to see Arthur Smith make it a point to get those guys the ball against Jacksonville.
All right, done with the bad. Let's talk about the good real quick. The defense, man. I mean, outside of that one Richie Grant miscue, and this is a Lions offense that we talked about going into the game. It's a really good offense. It's a top 10 unit. Jared Goff is playing out of his mind. He didn't look fantastic, but I think a lot of that had to do with the Falcons and this defense. I mean, they played very well. They give this team a chance to win outside of that Richie Grant miscue, which is a very bad miscue, which led to the touchdown in the first half. They hold the Lions to 2 field goals in the first half. They come out in the second half. They go 3 and out. They allow 1 first down, then another punt, then 3 and out, then an interception. And like they gave you they gave the Falcons 4 or 5 chances to get back in the game. It was a 2-score game. Obviously, Koo missed the field goal, but and then finally the Lions score. But it's like, dude, if you give them 6 possessions in one quarter, like eventually they're going to score a touchdown. I mean, I think we can confidently say after this week that this defense is a legitimate, not we talked top 15. I think this is a legitimate top 10 unit. I mean, they are a good defense.
Yeah, and I saw some people. I don't know how people watched that game and then said, where's this defensive line I've heard so much about? We got pressure all game long.
We had 8 quarterback hits.
They didn't result in sacks per se, but they were touching Jared Goff on near every dropback. They were getting pressure. And the secondary looked unbelievable. Jesse Bates continues to just be the free agent signing of the year. I'm not even saying for the Falcons. In terms of the entire free agent class, he has been the best free agent signing through 3 weeks. The only negative I could potentially say, and this is something that dates back to last year, and it's clearly hampering them again, is the second level of the defense in pass coverage. The linebackers in pass coverage have been pretty bad. I'd say I bet 15 of Jared Goff's completions came against, not against linebackers, but somewhere in their zone where they were the nearest defender. And it's those dig routes in between the second and third levels, those in-breaking routes that they're hard to cover. I'm not saying this is just, an easy fix, but it is the one glaring weakness of this Falcons defense. Other than that, this defense is unreal. I mean, they looked really good against the run. They got off after Jared Goff. They gave the offense more than a handful of opportunities to put points on the board. More than a handful. And yet the Falcons offense continue to spin its tires. I have nothing but great things to say about this Falcons defense. They look for real. It's a good change of pace where, generally speaking, for the past, decade, we've been like, can we get Matt Ryan some help? Can we get this offense some help? Now, shoes on the other foot.
Yeah, I mean, Bud Dupree had his best game. I mean, he was blowing up Penei Sewell, one of the premier offensive tackles in the league. He had 2 holding penalties, which are essentially they don't count as sacks, but they're essentially like getting a sack. He forced 2 of those. He had several more quarterback hits. I think we had 8 or 9 quarterback hits on the game. So, yeah, no sacks, but there was pressure in Goff's face all day. Jesse Bates was great. He did have that one terrible penalty. I don't know what the hell he was thinking, but that Falcons on that drive, they had 7 snaps inside the 10-yard line and couldn't score. I mean, that's just like what this Falcons defense did. Caden Ellis, another guy, had a good game. I know you're talking about his pass coverage and stuff in the second level of this defense, but overall, he had another really good game. So defensively, I think this group is something that the Falcons can lean on. But they just got to get better offensively. And listen, like you said, it's the NFL. Like these kind of games are going to happen occasionally. Hopefully they come out. They could come out next week and look like a totally different group on the offensive side of the ball because that's what happens in this league. That is literally how the NFL works. You saw it across Cowboys, all the Texans winning. Yeah, it's just crazy. Coming up out of the break, Charlie Morton hits the IL, won't be available. We're going to talk about it.